How's it going, everybody? Desir here, and we are doing the defense options video for Cosmic Crucible Season 10. The first week is in the book, so I had plenty of time to do some testing, kind of see what works. I definitely was adjusting my defense throughout the week, just so I could try to find the best options for people. Now, for this video, I basically go through each room, kind of get the best options that you're able to use in those rooms to kind of maximize what defenses you can put where. And I'm also trying to aim more towards mid-game and the end game, basically the meta teams that you should be focusing on. Now for the first slide here, the global rules. On the left side, we see the key offenses. These are teams that I feel are going to be key offensive weapons for you this season. The Old Man Logan team, Marks for Money, is going to be an offensive weapon this season. And this is whether you use the 3-piece or add an Indakin as the 4th member. Apocalypse is still going to be a great offensive weapon for you to try to help take out the Annihilators because of the Gladiator. Cabal is amazing on offense. They can basically take out any team except for the Illuminati. They do struggle a little bit with the Annihilators. You might need to add in the Pretunt and Kang to be able to punch through that, depending on the levels and what support characters are with the Annihilators. Superior 6 is another offensive weapon this season. The main reason for that is going to be because of the Extreme X-Men. If they are in Stage 4, they are a monster team to try to get through. Because of the room rules and the Extreme X-Men popping in stealth, that's going to make it a lot more difficult for them to get through and kind of do your targeting. Because of that, the Superior 6 is going to be more of an offensive tool than defensive tool. Now let's go over the global rules for this season. Annihilator characters, anytime a character gains ability energy, that character gains a regeneration. Now this doesn't seem too impactful, but it sort of is. The Annihilators are very difficult to get through on defense, so the longer the fight goes on, the more ability energy that they can pump out, which gets them the regen and makes them a lot harder to actually get through. So it really depends on the length of the fight for this rule. Now the rest of the global rules are pretty much the same. On defense, characters will gain plus 20% max health and 10% damage. After each completion attack, gain plus 1 exhaust. This is the same, and I'm actually glad they're keeping that exhaust mechanic, otherwise it would be a lot more difficult to get through certain teams, such as Illuminati if you try to do a couple sack methods, or the Mephistos especially. If there's no exhaust, Mephisto would basically be an unstoppable force for you to try to get through. Let's go ahead and go over to Stage 1. For Stage 1, Teamwork. We actually had this way back in Season 5 of Cosmic Crucible. Striker characters on ally turn will gain assist now. The team I plan to use in here is actually going to be the Spider Society team. Because of how fast the team goes, the sustain, and what their assist can do, it's actually really good in this room. And you're not throwing anything big in here, such as your Mephisto that can be one-shot, your Super Skrull can be one-shot because of all the assists that come in. So throwing this in here is actually a very good budget option that can actually be fairly tricky on your opponents. Now I do plan to add a twist to this by taking out Ghost Spider and putting in Spider Weaver. She has very good synergy with Spider-Man Noir because they are both Tangled Web. She's going to be able to put barrier on a lot of the other characters on spawn. Plus if she actually makes it to her ultimate on turn 1, which seems very doable, having the charges on there to where those misses are going to come into play can be pretty game changing, I think. Now there is another option that you can put in here that would actually be sneaky good. If you end up taking out Ghost Spider and putting in Lady Deathstrike, she works very good with this team. Spider-Man Noir would go first, that would call the assistant, and if they have a bleed on themselves, Lady Deathstrike will actually put on defense down, which this team can actually take advantage of by doing extra damage on there. So that's the team I plan to use in here, is going to be Spider Society with Spider Weaver. Now some of the other options that you can do in here. When I went against Updog on the tournament, he ended up running the Illuminati with the Pretunt of Sasquatch. Make sure that you put Black Bolt in here though. I did test this with Mr. Fantastic. That was able to get one shot by using the full Illuminati team in there. If you end up using Black Bolt, it makes it a lot more difficult because the burps that Black Bolt can do, the health bonus that Black Bolt can give to the Illuminati, makes it a lot tankier to get through. Now another good option, the Secret Defenders with Spider-Man Noir. If you add in Quicksilver, I think that would be pretty sneaky. Anytime your ally takes a turn, which Spider-Man Noir would take his first turn, that can give a chance of getting a speed up over to the Quicksilver, and that can really throw off the counter as he would be able to delete somebody right off the bat. The Extreme X-Men with Dorm is a very good option in here. I end up facing that, I think, on my round 2 or round 3 opponent. I want to say it was my round 3 opponent. And add in the Dorm in there, making it to where I have to use my North Star in here. And having that risk of him getting one shot by the Extreme X-Men team is something that you need to worry about. I end up using the Superior 6 with North Star. I was able to cleanse those Revive onces, but it was still a very long slog of a fight that was an efficiency killer. It also got very risky at the end because I wasn't able to take the Revive once off of Forge, and I kind of had to play around with that. So that is a very good sneaky option in here as well. Let's go ahead and head over to Stage 2 next. For Stage 2, the best offense. All characters on turn will bury yourself for 5% of that character's max health, and flip offense down on self. On turn, if this character's bury is above 50%, gain offense up. The team I'm actually looking at using in here is a combination of the Out of Time team and Weapon X. My thought process behind this is Black Knight's always going to be a threat, so either you need to sack it or risk trying to get the one shot and possibly failing. Captain America and Peggy Carter are great support characters for him. Captain America giving Black Knight the deflect, Captain Carter to be able to keep the sustain going. Lady Deathstrike just got the rework, and Omega Red works very well with her. He's a pretty decently fast character. He doesn't have as much speed as before because of the new tunes that keep coming out. However, if he's able to make it to his first turn, use the special, that's going to give speed up to Lady Deathstrike for her to really pop off. The damage increase that she got is phenomenal. She can wipe out 2 or 3 characters with her ultimate if she gets the rebound chain going. Plus the turn rewind that she has. I think this is going to be a fairly sneaky team. And having this in Stage 2, I could see to where this can actually work very well. The main thing is I don't really see any other team that can really fully take advantage of the room rolls. Captain America and Black Knight being able to get the barrier, I think that's actually fairly well in here. Some of the other options that I have in here would be like a Black Order Quicksilver. That's more of a luxury team if you had that built up. That's just always a team that can go haywire if you end up using the incorrect counter on it. The Spider Society is another very good team in here. Being able to get that barrier, have the chance to flip the offense down into offense up. The sustain that the team has. Spider Society is just one of those teams that is good in every single room, so you're going to see that multiple times on this list. For the Infinity Watch, they always get the barrier as well, so they can kind of work with the barrier option in here. They're going to have that immunity on turn 1, so that way they're not going to get offense down on turn 1 to be able to flip it, but they are kind of an efficiency sink. However, there are several counters for the Infinity Watch nowadays. I think it's still always one of those luxury teams right now, so that's going to be more of an endgame team. Personally though, I am pretty excited to test out that Out of Time Weapon X team, so we'll see how it does. I'm hoping that it might throw a few people off guard for this one. Let's go ahead and move over to Stage 3 next. For Stage 3 Double Tap, all characters on a successful hit, if the target has exposed, perform a basic attack against that target. If this character has exposed, lower the character's resistance by 20%. Now this one here, I think the room rolls are a little wonky in here. I was watching Dorky Dad's Cosmic Crucible fight, and there was a very weird interaction with Super Skrull being able to do a special, and then it basically followed that up into the double tap rule without having any vulnerable on it. So it kind of looked like it procced on its own, and then Ultimates had a very weird interaction as well. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. We'll see if that ends up getting fixed, hopefully this week. With that being said, I am planning to use this as a dead room still. The Infinity Watch is the team that I'm going to put in here. Just like I discussed in the Stage 2, I do have this team built up, so I am going to use this kind of like a filler team. Because of how powerful I have them right now, I'm hoping it's just going to be one of those efficiency sync teams. Now another team that you can end up putting in here would be like the Extreme X-Men team with Rogue. However, I feel that they have more value in other rooms. This is one of those rooms that would be more of a last ditch effort if I want to put it in here. I just see them working a lot better in some of the other rooms that we're going to discuss down the line. The Annihilators team is a team that could work in here, especially with Super Skrull, because of the wonky interaction that's currently going on that I mentioned. Having it to where Super Skrull can special turn 1, triggering his own exposed mechanic, which will do damage to the entire team, and then having it to where Ultimus kind of playing into that as well. Now there are a couple different versions of the Annihilators team that you can end up using. During the Cosmic Crucible tournament, I went against the Annihilator team with Super Skrull, the Silver Surfer version, and Ms. Marvel Harley. That was a very interesting, difficult interaction because Super Skrull doing the turn rewind on turn 1, and Ms. Marvel Harley getting her ultimate off turn 1 to where she is able to do another turn meter rewind. Plus the Ms. Marvel Harley is going to be a direct counter into the Apocalypse, to where when Apocalypse tries to use his ultimate, he's going to have to punch into her as well. So that's a very interesting interaction if you're able to forego your Secret Defenders team with the Ms. Marvel Harley. There are options with the Secret Defenders where you can use Photon as the third member and using the Eternals as well. That's a pretty interesting combination and use of the Secret Defenders and the Eternals team. The more common version though is going to be the version with Vol in there. I definitely feel that no matter what, you should use Gore in here. The main reason for that is people end up using their Old Man Logan into here. If your Gore is big enough, he's actually a very big counter into the Old Man Logan by removing his revive once on turn 1 when he does the ultimate ability. So that's something that you definitely need to be aware of if you see the Gore variant, that your Old Man Logan could actually fail that punch across or even punch up. Now the Vol variant is a very interesting one as well, because that will give you 3 options of having the exposed mechanic out there, racking up the ability energy for your Annihilator team, and Vol being able to get the ultimate off a whole lot sooner. That way your defense will be able to revive characters. However, with the Annihilators, I do feel there are better rooms that you can actually throw them into, which we'll look at in the future. Let's go ahead and move over to Stage 4 next. For Stage 4, Spec Ops. All characters, if this character has stealth, gain plus 20% damage. On dodge, gain stealth. I'm actually going to be testing something out on this room. This is actually where I'm going to put my Mephisto. Another good option if you don't have Mephisto, because I know that's kind of limited right now still. I think maybe 3,000 people or so have him. You could probably go with the Extreme X-Men and Black Knight in here. I was running that last week in Stage 5, and that was actually doing very well. However, after facing all of the Extreme X-Men last week in Stage 4, the Extreme X-Men in here are very deadly. Especially if you end up throwing a pre-taunt in here, put Rogue in here so that way she has that reflexive taunt for when you start knocking the Extreme X-Men low enough. Just having it to where this team goes stealth, so you're really limited on the characters that you're able to attack in here. Now, with the full Extreme X-Men and Rogue, I was able to counter that pretty easily with the Superior 6 team. That's why I mentioned earlier in this video that the Superior 6 is going to be more of an offensive tool this season. Now by adding Mephisto in here, that's going to allow it to where people need to do the double sack in here. I'm curious how that's going to do, because normally people use Mephisto with teams such as the Spider Society. However, I don't want to put Mephisto in Stage 1 with my Spider Society team, so that's going to allow it to where I have more flexibility to move Mephisto elsewhere. Now some other options that you can do in here would be using the Extreme X-Men with Dorm. That ended up being a fairly good team in Stage 4 as well when I was facing that earlier this week. Now I know some people were swapping Dorm out and using Lady Deathstrike in here. That is a pretty interesting option. The Superior 6 will still be able to be that, just like without her. So now being able to move Lady Deathstrike out of this room and putting her in that out of time in Stage 2 with Omega Red, I think that's going to be a pretty interesting mix. Now some of the other options you can put in here would be the Spider Society. Ghost Spider does allow it to where she has a lot of dodge mechanics, and because of her passive, allowing it to where when the team starts dropping low in health, they end up going stealth. That does give them that added survivability and allow them to be able to do the extra damage because they are in stealth. The Superior 6 team and the Secret Defenders both would still be able to counter that in here. That's why I don't really like using the Spider Society team without adding Black Knight to them, or that other lifters such as Mephisto, just to kind of give that team that extra oomph, if you will. Now, if you do decide that you want to keep your mercs for money on defense, this is a pretty good room to put them in. Having the 3-piece merc for money where you have Old Man Logan, Pandapool, and Dakin, add in the pre-taunt of Sasquatch, who also goes stealth himself, and Spider-Man Noir. This team would be able to work very well in here. Now, if you don't want to use Dakin in here, you could definitely swap him out for the Nightcrawler. However, I feel that Nightcrawler is going to be better suited this season with the Extreme X-Men team. However, definitely be warned that if you have your mercs for money on defense, it's going to be very difficult to counter those Annihilator teams. That's why I really like them as an offensive tool this season. Let's go ahead and move over to Stage 5 next. For Stage 5, Heroic Shielding. Hero characters on turn gain +1 deflect. When this character is attacked, apply defense down to the attacker. Now previously I was using the Extreme X-Men with Rogue and Black Knight in here. That was doing very well to where it was either pulling an Apocalypse version of a team or Superior 6, and that was still having a lot of issues with this. So this team does very well in Stage 5, and I would definitely recommend doing that. However, what I'm going to be doing is using the Illuminati with Sasquatch as the pre-taunt in here. I do feel that where I'm at in Cosmic Crucible, putting this extra defensive layer on is going to make it to where my opponent needs to pick and choose where they want to use their Illuminati. They can try taking it in this one or going into my Annihilator team. And either way, that's going to be a very big victory for me, and I think I can get away without having this team for offense. We'll try to revisit this in the future to see if I do need to pull this off. Now, another good team that you can put in here would be that Spider Society with Black Knight. Having it to where the Black Knight, either on this team or the Extreme X-Men team, is making it to where the opponent has that defense down on those retaliates is very big. The nice thing about the X-Men version is Gambit is going to be doing those pings into the defense down characters as well. And the Spider Society version is going to have the added benefit of hitting into defense down while having it to where they are very sustainable and survive. Now, a team that I ended up using last season was the Old Man Logan team. Sasquatch, Pandapool, Old Man Logan, Nightcrawler, and Guardian. I do feel that this team can do very well in Stage 5. They're going to have to deal with the pre-taunt of Sasquatch, and they're going to be hitting into these hero characters, giving them that defense down while this team gets deflect. So that's going to make it to where this is going to be a very difficult team. Now, as I said for the Stage 4, having Nightcrawler go with the Extreme X-Men team is very powerful this season, and I would recommend doing that, especially how I said you want to make sure that you have Old Man Logan for offense, but I wanted to give this option in here for those that do want to have Old Man Logan on defense still. Let's go ahead and move over to Stage 6 next. For Stage 6, Dorky's Madness. This was the room that was created by Dorky Dad and his community. All characters, when this character drops below 50% health, gain trauma. When this character uses their special, gain ability block. When this character uses their ultimate ability, gain blind. I actually really enjoy this room. It has so much theory crafting tied into it that this is fantastic. But I was also a huge Scourge player to where I loved those Horseman Scourges, and this is just a very nice callback to that. As far as the team that I'll be using here, I do plan to use my Annihilators with Super Skrull in here. Having it to where they're very sustainable, and having it to where Thanos Endgame is next to Gladiator, to where you have a good chance of actually getting him pushed, and just decimating the enemy team is very dangerous. The Super Skrull added in here makes it to where you really need to bring something in here that can actually take this team out in one shot, because if this team gets going, it's very difficult to take it out. The reason I put Silver Surfer in here is only because he has those new stats. I was trying to find other options to put in here. I didn't really want to put the Vol in here. I wanted to put something that had a bigger difficulty to get through. And Vol is fairly easy to kill off, and Silver Surfer has a lot of sustain built into him where every turn he gets that healing. So that's why I went with him. Also the turn 1 where he's going to be using the ultimate through an ability block on someone, and he can be more disruptive than not. Now a couple other options that you can put in here. The Darkhold with Dakin and Quicksilver is surprisingly very difficult in here. And by difficult, I mean that this team is able to catch you off guard. Having it to where this team can drop you below health, get in that trauma, and then you start using your abilities to where you're going to have the trauma, the ability blocks, the blinds, and then you have to be careful of your abilities. It can really catch you off guard and kind of ruin your efficiency. The Hivemind Super Skrull Sasquatch team, I think that could do fairly well in here. While this team starts using their abilities, the Red Goblin's going to end up using his ultimate and throwing all the negative effects back at you. Super Skrull is able to get the immunity on himself as well, so that's actually a fairly good option in here. The Spider Society team, again, is very good in here. They have ways of cleansing their negative effects, the sustain that they have, and how you have to be careful with your abilities into them. I think that could be kind of a sleeper pick in here. Again, you can always spice this up by adding a Black Knight or a Pre-Taunt in here, making it more difficult for the Secret Defenders or the Superior 6 team to be able to take this out. Now, if you would like these infographics, I always upload them to my Discord channel, usually about 24 to 48 hours after the video has been uploaded. To get access to my Discord channel, that's going to be in the description below. Now, hopefully you guys did end up enjoying this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, share with the community, and comment below. Until next time, have a wonderful rest of the day.